Hello, and welcome to Radiance Revealed, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, fitness enthusiast, nutrition expert, and global explorer that over the years has uncovered that your skin is a true representation of your internal health. Each week, we will chat with leading health, wellness, and even spiritual experts who will reveal secrets to true health and vitality. My goal is to help you change small habits to give you the power to create a more balanced, aligned, and elevated version of yourself. Now let's dive in. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Radiance Revealed podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley. And this week, I want to talk about the 4 R's of facial rejuvenation. So I teach courses on building an aesthetic practice to other physicians, PAs, and nurse practitioners that want to bring aesthetics into their practice. And there are certain ways of evaluating someone from an aesthetic standpoint to keep a balanced look and to provide the results that most people are looking for. Because we find that as we get older, we want to look as good as we feel. So even though we're aging, we still feel young. And then we look in the mirror and there's a discrepancy and there's a mismatch of how we feel to how we look. So while I want everyone to take the power in your hands in order to gain control of your health, and then as you have good health, the result will be good skin, I also believe in aesthetic procedures. The world is not black or white. It's very gray and there's no absolutes in anything. So there are people out there. I know people in the biohacker world that are totally against things like Botox, but I've been on Zoom calls with these people and they've had Botox. I can tell by looking at someone whether they've had Botox or not. So the world is not black or white. There's nothing that's good or bad 100% when it comes to aesthetic procedures. And it really falls in your own decision. It's your own decision, what's right for you, what works for you. And that's who gets to make the choice. Okay. But at the end of the day, I want you to not reach externally for someone to fix everything. I want you to think about what you can do on a daily basis to also improve your health and your appearance, right? Because it has been shown that your biological age is very correlated with how you look, how your skin is. Because we know the skin is the largest organ of the body, the largest visible organ of the body, and it is representing the health of all of your internal organs. So if your skin is healthy, chances are the inside of your body is healthy as well. Okay, so when I teach these courses, basically, when we evaluate someone, when we evaluate ourselves, like what do we need? The first thing you want to look at is the first R, which is resurfacing. So when we look at skin, any abnormality or textural variation, like if you feel like your skin is dry or really adherent and stuck on and you've lost that glow, or lots of brown spots or lots of red spots in the face, that is where we want to address resurfacing of the skin. So there's many, many things that you can do to resurface the skin. So the first thing that you can do to resurface the skin is basically skincare at home. So when you go to the dentist, for instance, and you get your teeth cleaned, you still are brushing your teeth at home, right? You don't go to the dentist twice a year to get your teeth cleaned and you don't brush your teeth at home. You still brush your teeth at home. And that's why skincare is so essential on a daily basis in order to help support the skin's natural metabolic processes of protection during the day, renewal at night. So we want to support the skin's natural processes through our skincare. So we've talked about this before, and I'll say it again. The most simple things you can do for skincare is to cleanse in the morning, apply a vitamin C and E product in the morning, let it dry completely, and then apply your sunscreen, SPF 30 or higher with zinc oxide, tinted if you're a woman and you struggle with pigmentation in particular. That's the minimum that you want to do in the morning. Now, if you want to add hydration, you'll do that after your vitamin C and E. And typically, when you're applying any skincare, you go from the thinnest product to the thickest product. So the thinnest product is applied first, and then you get thicker as you have consequential steps. Now at night, basically is when you want to add your retinols, your vitamin A products. So you would cleanse, and then add your retinol, then add your eye cream around your eyes for the eye specific areas, and then add your moisturizer. Now, in the winter, when it's drier, you might want to add a moisturizing cream instead of a lotion. You may want to boost your moisturizing cream with hyaluronic acid. And I've talked about this on previous podcasts. You can refer to those for more details and demos. And that's what you're going to do at night. And then you want to think about exfoliating. So during the winter months, we're having less exfoliation, maybe once a week with an enzymatic exfoliant or a alpha hydroxy acid or beta hydroxy acid. You do a topical chemical exfoliant to your skin to help slough off the dead skin cell layers. And then after you exfoliate, you hydrate to seal in the moisture. In the summer months, in the fall in particular, when you're trying to lift off pigmentation, you will want to increase your exfoliation. When it's more humid outside, when the heat's not turned on in the house, when you're trying to lift off pigmentation at the end of summer, that's when you want to increase your exfoliation. But be aware that exfoliation can make you more predisposed to sun damage. So that's where you want to balance it and maybe seek the advice of a skincare specialist. So those are some things that you want to do at home on a daily basis in order to improve your skin texture and your skin tone. Now, what can we do in the office? So in the office, we can do chemical peels, and you can do very mild chemical peels that we might call like a lunchtime peel that you can do with your favorite esthetician, who will basically do a light peel. So it basically is more of an exfoliation than you would do at home, but not so much where you're having downtime and sloughs and large sheets of skin sloughing off. So you have light chemical peels, and they could be, anything from Jesner's, it can be salicylic acid, glycolic acid, mandelic acid. There's all sorts of different acids. Many of these acids come from something in nature, like apples or milk, like lactic acid, things like that. So using food on your face is not as effective as a refined, purified, measured product. Be aware of that. Now just say you have more. So these lunchtime peels, these light peels, they can be done more frequently, once a month, and just kind of gives you a little bit of a freshening look. The stronger peels can be done in a dermatologist's office or with a medical esthetician in a dermatologist's office. And these peels may cause you to exfoliate for about a week or so. So you're going to get a little bit more results. You know how when you work out, you hear no pain, no gain. Same sort of thing happens with skin. So if you don't have a lot of downtime afterwards, you're not going to have as dramatic of a result. But you can do a series of treatments and get results. You're just not going to get there as quickly as if you did a heavier duty procedure. But if you're, using your sunscreen at home and you're doing all the skincare at home and you're taking care of your body from the inside out, then these maintenance light peels once a month are going to be plenty beneficial for you to maintain things. And why not maintain things? We maintain our cars by getting, oil changes and tune-ups all the time. We should be doing little tune-ups to our bodies. And I do like chemical peels. I think they play a very nice role. You can do dermabrasion. You can do microdermabrasion. Dermabrasion is a heavier procedure we do in the office, but microdermabrasion really doesn't have much downtime. You might be pink for 20 minutes to a couple hours afterwards, depending on how sensitive you are. And that basically sucks off the dead skin off of your face. There's different types of microdermabrasion. There's things like silk peel or dermal infusion, where there is a vacuum type device with a little exfoliator brush, and then a serum is infused also, versus a salt type of microdermabrasion, which basically physically, mechanically removes the dead skin cells. I prefer the dermal infusions a little bit more than the traditional salt type of microdermabrasion, but both of them are effective, and the aftercare that you do will really make the biggest difference in the long run. So that's one thing, two things that you can do: chemical peels, microdermabrasion. Another thing that you can do for the texture and tone of your skin is microneedling. So microneedling you can do for the texture and tone of your skin. Some people may argue that microneedling does not do much if you do not have any issues with their skin. I'm not really sure I agree with this. I think the jury's still out on this, because We talked about hormesis on our previous podcast. And when you cause micro trauma, not a lot of trauma, but micro trauma to the collagen in your skin, it stimulates the dermis, the collagen, the elastic tissue, the GAGs or the glycosaminoglycans in your skin and the hyaluronic acid to all reproduce and make more of itself so it can thicken up your dermis with micro trauma, right? It's like a mini scar-like response that's forming in response to the micro trauma. So I think that microneedling can be added in this prejuvenation that we're calling. We're calling these things prejuvenation. Before you even see aging, can it help prevent deterioration of your dermis? Now, the more improvement you need in something, the more dramatic results you're going to see, right? So if you have a lot of brown spots, really dry, dehydrated skin, you're going to see a lot more improvement from any of these procedures than if you're someone who has nice skin to begin with. And that's why prejuvenation is hard to measure, because there's not a disparity between a big result. You can't really see a big result there. So understanding the science will help you to understand whether these things are worth your money or not, right? So skincare, absolutely, everybody should be doing skincare. The microneedling, I think, works really well. If you're younger than just say 35, I think microneedling is a great procedure if you're struggling with acne scars. So if you're someone that has indentations and atrophic acne scars, that's where there's a loss of the elastic tissue in the skin. So there's an indentation of the skin. If you're struggling with atrophic acne scars, microneedling can definitely help with that, especially radio frequency microneedling with the laser. That can help a lot, but you can even do microneedling in the office with someone. And as we talked before, I like the punch type of microneedling, the stamper type of microneedling, not the derma roller. There's a lot of people out there talking about these derma rollers, and I don't like them. I don't know a single dermatologist that likes them because they shear through the skin. It's uncontrolled shearing force that is likely to cause more scarring and not an even hormesis type of effect to rebuild your collagen. So we want an even strategic way to rebuild collagen, okay? We don't want random shearing forces. So that's the third treatment, is microneedling that you can do. So we've got skincare, we've got chemical peels, we've got microneedling, and we have microdermabrasion. So those are things that you can do to readdress the texture and tone of the skin. And then a higher level of that is laser. So now we're looking at lasers. And lasers stand for light assisted simulated emission of radiation. Okay, so in common terms, basically that means that what makes the laser special? So if I do a chemical peel, it goes to all of your skin. Okay, if I do microdermabrasion, it's all of your skin. Skincare, all of your skin. All of that is all of your skin. Lasers are selective. They are selective. They have a wavelength that is selective for a chromophore, which is a target in your skin. So a laser may be selective for pigmentation in your skin. It may be selective for hemoglobin or blood vessels in your skin. It may be selective for water in your skin, which is a resurfacing laser. So these are some of the things that lasers can be specific for. And with pigmentation, it will be specific at different depths, whether it's attacking a hair follicle for hair removal, whether it's attacking a tattoo, whether it's attacking age spots or sunspots, okay, or whether it's attacking melasma, which we do have some treatments for melasma now that are lasers. But do remember, when you're getting treated with a laser, go to someone who understands the physiology of skin, because I've seen a lot of legal cases where people treat all brown spots equally. All brown spots are not created equally. A brown spot is not a diagnosis. A brown spot can be a static pigmentation, like a sunspot, or it can be dynamic pigmentation, which is like melasma or post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. The brown spots you get like after an acne spot goes away. So they need to be treated very differently. So Sunspots are treated very differently than dynamic pigmentation like melasma. And if you treat them the same, you can make melasma worse. So be aware of that and go to someone who knows what they're doing when they're treating these things. Okay, so these are basically the things that we're doing to treat the first R, which is resurfacing. So looking at skin texture and tone, focus on resurfacing, removing dead skin cells, stimulating fresh stem cells to produce fresh skin below, and lifting off pigmentation. Okay. Now I want you to remember that there's this concept of epigenetics. And when I went to medical school, we were taught that your genetics were your destiny. And this is absolutely not the case. So our genetics basically are about 10 to 20% of how we show up in the world, may I say. The other 80 to 90% are the choices we make. And those choices don't have to be in this absolute world, right? We don't have to be perfect at everything. We just have to make more good decisions than bad decisions in order for our genetics to show up optimally in our favor, right? So I love the fact that we can do that because there are intrinsic aging factors. There's just our genetics is our intrinsic aging. Like how fast we age and how we age is going to be very associated with how our parents aged, okay? And that's our genetics, that's our intrinsic aging. But then there's extrinsic aging. And extrinsic aging is all of the things that are within our control. So number one, sun exposure, okay? So UV radiation damage to the skin over time. I always have the visualization of a rotisserie chicken sitting under the lights in the grocery store, and the longer it sits under the lights, the more crispy the skin gets on the chicken, right? And that's what happens to us over many, many, many years in the sun. So we want to realize that the amount of UV radiation we get is going to hasten how quickly we age. Now, there is a balance because we do love our light. We love the light coming in our eyes in the morning to set our circadian clock for the day. We love the light, the UVB rays that stimulate vitamin D production, but we don't want too much, right? So we'll go in a deeper dive in vitamin D and how to optimize your vitamin D while also protecting your skin from the sun in a future episode, probably the next episode, actually. And excuse me. And so the extrinsic aging that we have control over, okay? So UVB radiation is one of the things. Smoking is so bad for everything, every part of you, especially your skin. So smokers have higher rates of skin cancer. They have so much more aging. Go ahead and go online and Google twin studies, one smokes and one doesn't. And you'll see how dramatically, when you look at two twins, two identical twins, and how much of a disparity there can be between the two of them and how they age, depending on sun exposure, depending on smoking habits. So smoking, blah, don't do it. The third thing is pollution. Unfortunately, if you have poor air quality, that's going to hasten your aging because it's going to set up a lot of free radicals in the body. Our body has only so much repairing capacity. So if you are living in a polluted environment, then you really have to take a very, very close look in your diet and add a lot of antioxidants and, things to help with the free radicals. So, and also get an air purifier for your house. There's one company that I really like called Molecule with a K. It's Molekule. And I'm pretty sure you can get a discount code using Dr. Jen, just DRJEN. You can get a discount code on that. Okay, so indoor air quality matters. And then now we're talking about diet. So we know that high antioxidants, high polyphenols are so, so, so good for your body to protect itself, from all of these environmental toxins and just the horrible things we come into contact with all day. And our body's making free radicals every time we exercise. Our body's making free radicals just breathing and sitting here. Okay, so the next thing is stress. So stress really, really, really ages someone. And you can look at politicians during their term. presidents during their 4 years, you can see how quickly they age, how much more gray their hair gets, how how many more bags they have under their eyes. So while we cannot always control the stress that is in our lives, we can certainly control our response to the stress. So meditation's wonderful. There's many ways to meditate. When I first started meditating, I used the Headspace app. There's the Calm app. There's so many apps out there now. If you need guided meditation assistance, there's also, I love Yoga Nidra, which is non-sleep deep rest that you can find videos on YouTube. You have to find someone whose voice you like, because there are people I like and I love their voices, and I've sent it to friends and they don't like the voices. So find someone who resonates. But there's free available options for meditation and mindfulness all over the place. You don't have to pay money. You don't have to go to a retreat. Obviously, those options are great if you want to do a deeper dive, but there's not a lot of friction between doing nothing and doing meditation. So I'd suggest YouTube or one of the apps. And then my favorite thing to do is the 4-7-8 breath. I do this all the time when I'm waiting in the grocery line, if I'm at a stoplight, if I'm just waiting for anything, I'll do 4-7-8 breath. And Dr. Andrew Weil has a great YouTube video on this. But basically, you inhale for 4 through your nose, you hold it for a count of 7, and then you exhale for a count of 8 through your mouth, and then you recycle that. You go inhale 4 again. So I'm going to demo that for you really quick on YouTube. Okay. So then you keep recycling. You keep cycling through the 4-7-8 breath. And if you could do 4 cycles in the morning, 4 cycles in the evening for 2 to 3 months, I think he's shown that this can help with blood pressure as well. So if it's helping with something that's measurable like blood pressure, we certainly know that it's helping with our cortisol and our stress response. And when cortisol is thrown off, all of our hormones are thrown off. The body doesn't want to have you be able to reproduce when you're in a high stress state. So chronic stress is such a huge ager. So if there's anything that you can do today to help with your acne, to help you prejuvenate, slow down aging, reverse age, go ahead and do your mindfulness, breath work, yoga nidra. Take time for yourself, 10 minutes a day. Everyone has 10 minutes. Do it on the toilet. We all have 10 minutes. Okay. So we've got stress, and then food we talked about. So the polyphenols, taking in the good stuff, eliminating the bad stuff. What is the bad stuff? Seed oils, not so good. Avoid canola, avoid soy. So every single thing you look at in the store that's a marinade or a dressing, when you turn it over, it's going to have canola, soy, maybe safflower or sunflower oil. And you really need to avoid those because they're really cheap oils and they're fillers and they're cheap and they're not good for the body. They cause a lot of reactions in the body that are not going to be good for your skin. And then the biggest thing is sugar. That's my biggest thing, and something I struggle with. We all struggle with it because sugar, on functional MRI studies, they've shown that sugar lights up the same areas as heroin. I think it's more addictive than heroin, sugar. So we know that. We live in a society that's addicted to sugar. But the cool thing is I did a couple of fitness competitions years ago. And when you do a fitness competition, you have to work out a lot, but you also have basically an elimination diet. You don't eat many foods and you have to measure everything and weigh everything. And my entire palate changed. So when you're not eating sweet foods all the time, your palate changes and things that used to not taste very good actually start to taste sweet. Like I remember thinking, wow, this celery is really salty and really sweet. Meanwhile, who thinks of celery as salty and sweet? So your palate changes. You just have to, when you decide to cut down on things, give it a good 2 to 6 weeks for your body to acclimate and adjust and detox, unfortunately, because we're addicted and we detox. So I was looking through some things and I used to write articles for, I don't know if you could see that, Fitness RX magazine. And this article is 10 years old. And I used to answer like beauty questions of the month. And this question was, does consuming sugar have any effects on your skin? So I'm going to read this to you. Sugar has zero nutritional value. It has no nutritional value. There's nothing in our body that needs sugar. Nothing, nothing in our body. So it ruins both your figure and your skin. Sugar is highly addictive and it affects the brain like heroin, and it doesn't contribute to satiety. So that means it does not make you full. So unfortunately, with sugar, you're getting a lot of calories, you're not getting a lot of nutrition, and you're not getting full. So it's a lose-lose situation. Okay, so that's why it makes you overeat because you're not feeling satisfied. So you just keep eating more and more. We all do. So we know that our skin represents our internal health, and the effects of sugar on both can be horrifying. Okay, that's a little dramatic. Okay. When excess sugar circulates in the bloodstream, and this is what I want you to understand. So, when you have high levels of glucose in your bloodstream, so when you go to the doctor once a year or twice a year and they check your fasting blood sugar levels, that's how they could tell if you're diabetic or pre diabetic or whatnot. And so, when those excess sugar levels are circulating in your bloodstream, what happens is it attaches to proteins in the bloodstream and all over your body. And what are you looking at right now? That's a protein. It's the collagen in your skin. So sugar will attach to proteins and it forms advanced glycation end products, which are called AGEs, like aging, basically ages. And it forms these AGEs. And now these advanced glycation end products, they cause the protein fibers to become really, really stiff and malformed. Now, if things are malformed and they're stiff, they're not pliable. They're not able to do their normal metabolic processes. So if your blood vessels become stiff because of the high sugar that binds, now your blood pressure goes up and the blood vessels aren't working as well. And it predisposes you to all sorts of heart problems and other things down the road. If the protein in your skin is not functional and the glycogen, the collagen in your skin is not able to bounce back, then you don't have the dewy complexion, the pliability, the softness of your skin anymore, and you become really sallow and dehydrated and dried out your skin, and it doesn't bounce back. And every time you make a face, those wrinkles stiff. They stick there. The collagen is stiff, and the wrinkles stick there. So the other thing is that the AGEs, these ages, these advanced glycation end products, they bind to RAGEs, which are receptors of advanced glycation end products. And that sets off a whole inflammatory cascade. So you have tons of inflammation. We'll do a deeper dive on this in the future on sugar, and I'll show you how to use this. Can you see that? Okay. This glucose monitor. I'll do a demo on how to put that on because I haven't been so great. What is it? Mid-January. And since the holidays, I mean, I think all of us are trying to get back into routine as it is. So I find that when I wear a continuous glucose monitor, it makes me more accountable because you can actually see the numbers of how high your glucose is. And genetically, going back to our genetics and our epigenetics, genetically, I am predisposed to diabetes. So if I have too many carbohydrates and if I gain weight, I will definitely become diabetic because my body does not manage blood sugar as well as someone who is not predisposed to diabetes. So I have to be really careful. I mean, some of us can get away with more than others, but at the end of the day, we all benefit from doing these lifestyle things. So sugar avoidance is really key. And I'll go more into that in the future on another episode. So we've got air quality, we've got UV protection, we've got glucose, we've got cortisol. Those are some of the things that we can control extrinsically in our lives. And that's what I want you to start focusing on, right? Like, what are you putting in your mouth? Is it going to bring you closer or further away from the skin that you desire? So, and then the other thing I want to talk about is mindset. So our mindset, the skin that we manifest, this is what we believe we deserve, right? There's not a person here listening that doesn't deserve perfectly clear skin. There are many people that listen to this podcast that are in the esthetician industry, that are dermatologists, that are in the skincare industry, and they love providing results for people because they want people to show up and be proud and happy and and feel good about themselves, right? So there's no one listening to this that does not deserve perfectly clear skin. And it's attainable. It's attainable for every single person listening. So a lot of the times when I would see patients over the years, people would say, "Oh, you fixed me." And I'm like, "No, I did not fix you. I distracted your body while your body healed itself. So I distracted you while your body healed itself." And that's how I feel that I work. So I may give a treatment, it may be a medical treatment, and I will provide a medical treatment. And as the person can see their skin transform, now they believe that their skin can be that way. And that belief system is so strong. There's no fear of a breakout, there's no fear of anything anymore. And now your skin evolves and becomes that clear presentation that you've always wanted. So the belief system, the believing that you deserve it, the believing that it's yours is very important. Okay. So, okay, we addressed the first R. So, resurfacing. So, addressing texture and tone of the skin. I feel like that's the lowest hanging fruit. And that's something that you can start doing today. Okay. So, there's a link in the podcast notes of my favorite skincare brand. There's so many great ones out there. Okay. So, look for the active ingredients we've discussed in the past. The second R is relaxing. Okay. And this is very controversial. So, this is the Botox. I'm just going to use the word Botox like I would use the word Band-Aid or Kleenex or Q-tip, okay, as a name brand. But in the US, there are 5 FDA approved Botox type of products or neuromodulators. We call them neuromodulators. And there is Botox, there's Jeuveau, there's Dysport, there's Xeomin, and there's Daxxify. And the product itself isn't as important as the person injecting it. So it can be done very well, or it could be done very poorly, depending on who's injecting it. So I could personally make all of those products, for the most part, work similarly to each other. It just depends on who's injecting it and how they understand the anatomy of the face. So how is Botox used and these other neuromodulators? How are they used? They are used to strategically and focally weaken muscles that form lines. So if you have, I've been doing it in between my brows since I was 29. So if you have frown lines in between your brows, or you want to prevent frown lines from forming, you can use these neuromodulators to the area so you can't move the muscles. So we inject the product focally into muscles that form lines. So if you look at my arm, for instance, right, if I make a muscle, I have a bicep and then I have my forearm, right? And in between there's a crease. So if you weaken the muscle on both sides of the crease looks smaller. So if you see a big giant bodybuilder who has a big giant bicep and a big giant forearm, the crease in between those two muscles is going to be deeper than in someone like me that has a smaller muscle, right? So the goal with these neuromodulators, with the Botox, is to weaken the muscles in between the two lines. And if we weaken the muscles in between the two muscles that connect, then the line will get smoother over time. Okay. So Botox can be used to relax muscles that form lines. It can be used in areas where the muscle is causing the line. So if you have a crease on the middle of your cheek or a smile line, Botox cannot be used in those areas because weakening that muscle will prevent functioning of the muscle. So there are no solutions. There's only trade-offs, right? So you're always weighing the pros and the cons of everything. There's no complete solutions. There's only trade-offs. So if you want to make a line disappear, prevent a line, you're going to sacrifice use of that muscle. So in between my brows, if you can see me on YouTube, I can't frown. That's as much as I can frown, right? So I can't frown, but I'm okay not frowning. That's not a big deal. But if I wanted to get rid of every line around my mouth, and I injected Botox into those areas, now you can't move your mouth. You can't talk. You can't smile. You can't chew. You can't kiss. You can't sip through a straw. You can't do any of those things. So you have to remember there are no solutions. There's only trade-offs. So Botox works to weaken muscles that form lines. So you want to strategically do it so that you weaken the muscle. You don't freeze the muscle. Okay. So we want to weaken the muscle so the muscle doesn't have maximum contraction and it doesn't form a deep crease, but you want to be able to still move that muscle a little bit, right? So we have these micro expressions. So I think about 7% of the words that somebody uses is how we communicate. The rest is all about the tone of the voice, maybe the speed of the speech, the cadence, the cadence of the speech, the body language we use. So it's really important when someone is getting a Botox treatment or giving a Botox treatment not to remove all of the micro expressions that we need in order to communicate daily. So if you can see me on YouTube right now, when I see someone, how do they know I'm happy to see them? If I say, I'm so happy to see you, like I'm frozen, you don't feel that I'm happy to see you. But when I'm able to raise my brows, like, I'm so happy to see you, right? Like, I'm so happy to see you. So when you raise your brows, you get that excitement that somebody knows. And the same thing when you smile. When you smile, your cheek should lift up so you can squinch and make a little bit of a squinch. You don't just smile like this and not have the squinch. So you should have a little bit of a squinch in your eyes. And when you don't have those micro expressions, you're not communicating well with other people. And I always ask myself, why do people even want to do aesthetic procedures? If we lived alone on an island without a mirror, would we want to do aesthetic procedures? These are questions you have to ask yourself. So, like, what's the why? Why are people doing these things? Well, we're pretty much doing all of these things because we want to connect more with other people. So if I, as an aesthetic provider, am not doing someone's treatment with Botox properly, I'm preventing them from connecting with others, which defeats the whole purpose. So we often are doing these things because we want to connect better with people. So we have to be very, very deliberate and careful about how we do it. Trust me, I trained in the 90s when we did it all wrong. So I teach these courses because I don't want anyone to make the mistakes I did. So we have these micro expressions, and it's really fascinating because studies show that if you are not able to frown, so if you can't frown all day long, you actually feel happier. So you can use Botox to feel better, which is great. But we're walking that Goldilocks line, right? Because if we ablate, if we remove the micro expressions, not only can you not communicate as well with other people because you're not having these micro expressions that they're receiving from you, but you also have an effect on your emotional feedback loop. So when you cannot make micro expressions, it's affecting your own emotional feedback loop where you don't communicate as well with other people and you don't understand them as well. And you don't necessarily have as much empathy for them as you may have if you had your full micro expressions. So there is a happy place to be with these treatments. Okay. More is not better. More of nothing is really better. More of the hormesis is scarring. More of all of the things we talked about in the last episode is not better. And same with the neuromodulators. They've gotten a bad rap because people have gotten too much. We live in this world where we think if a little bit is good, more is better, but that is not the case. Okay. So that explains our Botox and other neuromodulators. It's used to treat muscles that form lines. So if the muscle can't move as much, then the line won't be as deep. So where does it work well? It works well for the frown lines in between the brow. It works okay for the forehead, but when we're treating the muscles, we're not just chasing muscles. We're looking at the entire cosmetic unit of the face and how we can keep it in balance. And we have to think about what action that muscle takes place. So if I weaken my bicep muscle, my tricep muscle is going to dominate because it's the counter muscle, right? So if we treat our frown line alone and we ignore the forehead, that's how people get Spock treatments, because some of the product migrates into the middle part of the forehead muscle, which is responsible for raising the brows. And we're not addressing any other part of the forehead. And now people get Spocky up here. And that's easily treated by treating a little bit of the forehead when the treatment takes full effect at 2 weeks. But if someone doesn't like all of the lines in their forehead, I often will explain to them that your forehead muscle, called your frontalis muscle, is really the only muscle that lifts up the brows. So if we're chasing lines and we're trying to treat all of those lines to make them go away, and we weaken that muscle, it gives you a very, very low brow and a very angry, heavy appearance. So that's the trade-off. So less is more. Okay. We want to do enough to keep your face imbalanced, but not too much to make your brows heavy. Okay. We can do it for crow's feet around the eyes, but once again, less is more because number one, we don't want to weaken the muscle so much that it causes atrophy of the muscle and then you get a sunken in appearance after 10 years of doing it. Number two, we don't want you to lose that squinch. So when you smile and you're excited to see your friends, you are able to squinch. And then we can use it for off-label areas on the lower part of the face. You could use it for the neck bands. You could use it around the lips for a lip flip. You can use it for a TMJ or to change the shape of the face. There's other places you can use it. So that is basically Botox and the other neurotransmitters we mentioned: Xeomin, Dysport, Daxxify, and Jeuveau. Those are all FDA approved. There's a lot in the pipeline, a lot of different ones in the pipeline. But it's very, very low risk procedure and pretty high reward, no downtime. So that's why it's the most popular procedure in the world. Now, the third R is about revolumizing. So that's where we're talking about fillers. So revolumizing, basically, as we get older, we lose fat in our face. It gets redistributed to other areas of the body, especially if you're a high performance athlete, you're going to lose a lot of fat in your temples and other areas of the face. We also lose our bone. Okay. And that's why I'm a huge fan of weight training, because weight training and increasing your anabolic, your muscle strength, sends out cytokines from the muscle called myokines that stimulate your bones to get thicker as well. So strong muscles equal strong bones. Okay. Strong bones also shape your face. So that's part of the extrinsic forces that we have under our control is the exercise. The other thing about exercise is it increases blood flow. So when you have increased blood flow, you increase nutrient delivery, oxygen, and removal of metabolic waste products from the skin and all the organs. So who doesn't want that? We all want that. Okay, so what fillers can do is fillers can either revolumize areas strategically, or they can stimulate collagen to form in those areas. So there's collagen stimulating fillers, and there's also actual fillers, and some are both. And those can be, done. They have to be done by somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who knows anatomy, somebody who knows where to put them, somebody who understands the balance of your face, because they could be done so wrong and they could be done so right. But what I don't want people doing is just saying, oh, I look saggy here, and just blowing it up like a balloon, because we're not addressing all of the other things. And that doesn't always solve the problem to keep your face in balance. I see more often than not, it throws your face out of balance. So I really want people to understand the difference between filler and Botox, because I'll often get people coming in and saying, oh, I need Botox. And they point to like a line on their cheek. And that's more of a filler thing, or maybe a resurfacing thing with like a resurfacing laser even. So there's different treatments for different things depending on what's going on. And it's like building a house, right? Like you cannot build a house with just a hammer. You need multiple different tools in the tool shed and multiple different materials in order to build the house properly. And that's how it is with aesthetic treatments. Everything from you doing things at home to take care of the texture and the tone of your skin to lasers and fillers in the office with somebody who understands what they're doing. Now, whereas with Botox and neuromodulators, very low risk. The biggest risk is bruising, a red area, and then you can have migration of the product into the wrong muscle, and it can cause like a drooping of your eyelid. All of that's temporary. With fillers, there are risks. And I did a podcast with Ann Watwood and Larry Hellwig on the risks of fillers. I'll probably publish that in the next few upcoming episodes, because with fillers, there are risks. There are risks of the filler going into an artery And if a filler goes into an artery, it can cause necrosis and death of the skin beyond that. So injecting fillers sometimes to the lips or the nose area can cause, or even in the nasolabial fold, can cause, if it goes into an artery, because your anatomy is different than the book. Poor injection technique, there's many things that can go wrong here. It can cause necrosis and cell death of the skin, which basically is a big gangrene kind of looking area. And if it's injected into the retinal artery, it can cause blindness. So there are risks with filler. It's not something I think anyone should jump to. It's something that you need to vet the person who's doing it properly. They need to understand anatomy, so the risks are slight or less. And then also do it. Less is more. Just remember, less is more. And then the fourth R is like traditionally redraping, or like if you have gained a lot of weight in your lifetime, then lost a lot of weight, it's almost impossible to get rid of that sagging skin through any of the techniques that we already talked about. You can have multiple laser treatments, you can have filler, but you still may have some sagging skin. So there are treatments in the office. I'm going to have one of my aesthetic expert friends talk about some of these treatments. One of them is Ellacor. Ellacor is a treatment where little plugs of skin are removed from the face, and that can help multiple procedures to do that. Obviously, a facelift, a neck lift. And then there are other tightening treatments like Ulthera, and there's other tightening treatments like Soft Wave that can help tighten up the skin over time. So there are other procedures that can help tighten the skin. So those are basically the 4 R's, and how to prevent aging and do your prejuvenation at home from knowing what you know now about intrinsic aging versus extrinsic aging. So I hope that helps clear things up, and we'll do deeper dives in the future. Once again, I love all your questions. Keep sending them, and we'll continue to do our AMAs once a month. So go ahead and DM me on Instagram at Dr. Jen Haley. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube now, and I look forward to chatting more. Thank you so much for engaging. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend. Please subscribe, and please write a written review, because that will help other people find the podcast. Thanks. Have a great week. Bye, everyone.
If you're enjoying the Radiance Revealed podcast, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always know when there's a new episode. And while you're at it, please give us a review, as that helps others to find this podcast. And if you want to connect with me, please visit my website, drjenhaley.com, or you can find me on Instagram at drjenhaley.
Hello, everyone. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility made for statements made by guests. Neither this podcast nor any of the information contained within it are a substitute for care by a qualified medical professional. This podcast is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you are looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner.